The Shadow Society, surviving the lockdown. A cell phone chimed, announcing a new message. A female hand reached for the phone. Sue Taylor, 32, lived in a loft-style apartment in a high-rise building. It had a fabulous view of the Bay Bridge. She pressed the start button, logged in, and tapped the message icon. The message said, "Your job has been cancelled." What the heck? She tapped the phone icon on the message. Her boss picked up. "What's going on?" she asked. "I'm sorry for letting you know this way," he said. "I just got the word in an email. I thought you should know sooner rather than later." 2 months earlier. One evening, Sue stood at the breakfast bar eating Chinese food out of containers. She was reading emails on her company laptop, her constant companion. For a moment, she shifted over to her favorite news site and saw this headline: "Dangerous new virus emerging." She went back to reading emails. The next morning, while making copies, she chatted with a coworker, Marcy. "Have you heard about that new bug?" Sue asked. "No, what is it?" Marcy asked. "Some kind of flu," Sue said. "That's a big deal?" Marcy asked. "Probably not," Sue said. "We have the flu every year." 2 weeks later, everyone in her company was told to work from home as much as possible. One evening, Sue checked in with her best friend, Emily. "How is this work-at-home thing working out?" Emily asked. "I think I'm getting more done," Sue said. "At the office, there's always so much talking going on around me. It's hard to concentrate. I use conference rooms when I can, but other people have the same idea. A lot of my clients complain about these new style offices," Emily said. "Now they think of cubicles as the good old days." "Yeah, this hoteling stuff is BS," Sue said. "Whatever they save in costs is lost in terms of productivity." The news about the virus got worse by the day. All the media was dominated by headlines about how contagious and deadly it was. The day came when the mayor ordered everyone to stay home. She said it would only be a couple of weeks to slow the spread. That evening Sue and Emily discussed it on the phone. "I don't think it will be too bad," Sue said. "I can't see clients if they have to stay home," Emily said. "I hadn't thought about that," Sue said. "Will you be okay? I can help you if you need it." "I'm okay for now. Thanks for offering." One morning Sue woke up with a headache and cough. She called her doctor's office. They told her the doctor was not seeing anyone in person. She should go to an urgent care center if she felt she needed to see someone. She sent a text to Emily. Emily suggested she take some extra vitamins C, D, K, and zinc if she had them. Not being a health nut, Sue didn't have them. She made a quick trip to a nearby drugstore and bought bottles of each. Returning home, Sue called in sick, took some pills, and went back to bed. The next morning she was better. 2 weeks passed, and the lockdown was not lifted. Sue checked in with Emily. "What the heck is going on?" Sue asked. "They said it would only be 2 weeks. "I don't know," Emily said. "Everything I read says this is not a serious illness for most people. You have to take a test to know if you have it. I can't see how this is justified." One day Sue got a message from her boss, "I need to talk to you. Use the link in the email." Sue went to her email and clicked on the link. Zoom opened. "How's it going?" he asked. "Pretty well," she said. "The project plan is looking good. I still need to hear back from a few people." "About that project?" he said. "Yeah. We have to cancel it." "Why?" she asked. "With people working from home, they don't see any reason to continue the 5G project." "What happens when we go back to the office?" she asked. "We'll deal with that when it happens," he said. "What about my team?" she asked. "You have to lay them off." Sue bit her lip. "How can I do that?" she thought. "I've worked with these people for years. Some of them are my friends." "But, don't worry," he said. There are other projects you can work on. When are you going to tell them? I know it's hard, but it's just the way it is now. Give me a moment to think, she said. I've never had to do this before. I know, he said. I haven't had to do this since 2008. It made me sick to my stomach. It's best to just get it done rather than stewing over it. That just makes it worse. Can you do it for me, she asked. Sorry, you have to do it, he said. It's part of being a manager. Can you set up a Zoom for this afternoon? I guess so. Before close of business. I'll check back later. Sue slumped on her couch, crying. After a while, she roused herself and went to her laptop. She opened the Zoom app, scheduled a meeting, and sent the link to her team. 2 hours later, she met them. Most of the people had serious expressions. They had heard rumors about other layoffs in the company. Sue started crying again. It took her a few seconds to compose herself. All of you are being laid off, she said. I'm so sorry. She was answered with a chorus of whys and whats. I was told that the project is being cancelled because people are working from home. Aren't there other things for us to work on? Someone asked. I wish there was. But you know that other teams are also being let go. All over the company. What are we supposed to do? Another person asked. We have families and bills to pay. I know, Sue said. Maybe there will be some severance. Maybe you can get unemployment. Maybe things will get better soon and they will want you back. I'll help you any way I can. I have to end this now. Sue ends the meeting and flopped down on her bed, crying. For the next few days she moped around her apartment, taking emails from her former colleagues and waiting for her boss to call with a new assignment. And then she got the message. She was in shock for hours. Nothing in her experience had prepared her for this. Why me? She thought. What have I done to deserve this? I've been a good worker. I did everything they asked and more. She had been in college when the mortgage crisis of 2007 hit. For her, it was nothing more than something she read about or heard about from people she knew. Her parents told her about friends of theirs who were surprised to learn that their houses were worth less than they had paid for them. Her friends told her about parents who had lost jobs after working for the same company for years. Her dad had his own business. He had to cut back but was still making ends meet. As things improved, the pain faded, and something like normal slowly returned. When Sue graduated, a new internet boom had started. She got a good job as a developer at one of the big .com companies. After a couple of years, she jumped at the change to shift to the management track. As she told Emily, I wasn't born to be a code monkey. She had moved up as the company grew, but her management file tended to characterize her as a good follower with limited upward potential. Now all of that was gone. She called the HR office to ask about severance. She was shocked again when they told there wouldn't be any. The company was still bleeding cash at a high rate. The VCs had told them there wouldn't be any more money if they couldn't show how they would become profitable. They couldn't. She went online to see about getting unemployment. The system wasn't working. She tried calling. The voice system said they were experiencing high call volume, and then hung up on her. At that point, she made herself a cup of coffee and sat down to review her bank and credit card statements. She concluded she could get by for almost a year at her present level of spending. Surely things will get better before then, she thought. Using her phone, Sue ordered a laptop to replace the one she had returned to the company. Amazon delivered it a few days later. She opened the box and inspected it for shipping damage. Okay. She plugged it in and started it. It booted up and she made the connection to the Wi-Fi in her apartment. She created an account on ProtonMail and sent notices to Emily and her parents. Her dad called. Good to see you have access again. How ya doing, honey boo, he asked. Please don't call me that, she said. You're still my girl. But I'm grown up now. Stop it. Okay, okay, he said. But seriously, how are you doing? Okay, so far. How are you doing for money, he asked. I have enough to last for a while, she said. I'm sure things will get better. I hope so, too, he said, but this is a pretty bad situation. It could go on for months, even years. Do you really think so, she asked. I've seen this before, in the 70s. It took years to recover. I can help you if you need it. Thanks. I'll let you know, she said. What about your medical insurance, he asked. I had to lay off a few people, and they are telling me that even though Cobra is available, they can't afford it. I decided to help some of them, the ones with families. I hadn't thought about that yet. Would you at least let me cover that, he asked. She paused. I guess that would be okay, she said. I'll send you a check, he said. Do you know how much it is? It's about $500 a month. She checked in with Emily. How's it going, she asked. I'm getting by, Emily said. If you can't see clients, what are you doing for money, Sue asked. My parents are helping. But most of their income comes from Social Security, so it's not a lot. I had some savings. If you need to, you can move in with me, Sue said. Thanks. I'm not there yet. I like having my own place. I feel like I'm living in Groundhog Day, Sue said. I have to look at my phone to see what day of the week it is. I know how you feel, Emily said. They said it would only be a few weeks, and it just goes on and on. What else are they lying about? Do you really think they're lying, Sue asked. Maybe this is more serious than they are telling us. True, Emily said. They never want to spook the herd. They always say remain calm, help is on the way. But the help never comes. They really mean remain calm, we'll pick up the bodies when we can. You're so cynical, Sue said. I probably got it from my parents, Emily said. My dad says he hasn't trusted the government since Vietnam. The lockdown continued. The so-called vaccine was released. Pressure mounted to get the jab. For the first few months after she lost her job, Sue treated her time as a forced vacation. She had worked very hard since graduating, and she decided she had earned some time off. But after a while, she got tired of spending her days watching YouTubes and movies. Staying in her apartment all the time was depressing. She was used to being out and about and traveling, so the sense of being in prison grew by the day. One day she decided to call her old boss to see if he had any work for her. Hey, Bill, she said, how's it going? It's rough, he said. Everyone who is still here is doing the work of 2 or 3 people. Some days I envy the people who were laid off. Don't envy us. It's boring for me, but some of the Indians are having a terrible time. They can't go home because air travel is shut down, and they don't qualify for benefits because they aren't citizens. They're running out of money. Sorry to hear that. None of us wanted this to happen. Anyway, she said, the reason I called is to see if you need help with anything. I need help with a lot of things, he said, but there's no money for it. The company is running on fumes. If this goes on much longer, there won't be a company. We'll all be screwed. Well, I thought I'd ask. Sorry. Nothing I can do about it? Have you tried looking for jobs with other companies? Not yet, she said. I haven't felt motivated to do it. Maybe you should start. On top of having no work, she also had no love life. During college she had had a few short-term relationships, but since college romance had been way down her list of priorities. Before the lockdown, she had had a friends with benefits relationship with a former executive of her company. He was the product of a very nasty divorce. One time when they were in bed together, she had asked if he ever wanted more from a relationship. She felt his body stiffen. Then he told her the story. She didn't bring it up again after that. When he wasn't available, she would sometimes meet guys through Tinder. Emily didn't think much of that. In one phone call she said, "Do you actually sleep with those guys?" she said. "Gross. I've had a few lovers, but they were never casual relationships. Sometimes they were painful in the end, but never superficial. I don't kiss them or go down on them," Sue said. "Sometimes I just need sex." Sue started working on her resume. She hadn't had to do that for a while because she had been with one company for 5 years. It was a little hard to remember all the things she had done, but she slowly got it into shape. Then she started responding to postings on various job boards. She got very few responses, and fewer calls from recruiters. They would often say things like, "You have a very impressive background, but no one is hiring. I'm starving." At other times they might say, "You have good experience, but the hiring manager wants to see that your day-to-day matches his requirements. Based on what I see, I can't submit you. Can you tweak your resume so it's a better fit?" Sue spent hours rewriting, trying to fit into various requirements without inflating her experience. It didn't do much good. Many postings had so many requirements that they were unlikely to find a real person to fill them. She suspected that those requirements were written to prove that some existing employee could not be replaced. She began to wonder if age discrimination began at 33. Her dad called to check in. "How's it going?" he asked. "Okay," she said. "What do you mean by okay?" "Not great," she said, "but I'm surviving." "Is that enough?" he asked. "Not really. I'm afraid people in your generation aren't well prepared for times like this," he said. "Sometimes I feel a little guilty about that. Like I sheltered you too much. But parents always want good things for their children." "I'm not starving," she said. "I see videos about people living on the street, and I'm a lot better off than them. Fact is," he said, "hard times come around every now and then. At least you still have us to help you if you need it." "I appreciate that, Dad. I have to get back to work," he said. "We have problems, too." After a few months she got tired of being cooped up inside all the time. She started going out for walks. She walked down Market Street, looking at all the shops that had been trashed during the BLM riots. Their fronts were covered with sheets of plywood. There were some that were undamaged, but they were closed and stripped of merchandise. She walked by her favorite restaurants and bars. All were closed. She peered through the windows and saw that some had been stripped of all the furniture and fixtures. Gone for good. It was like being in a war zone. The streets that had been thronged with people were empty, except for the homeless camps. She had to walk carefully to avoid the needles and poop. Once she saw a couple of people who looked like tourists. They looked amazed at the state of what had been one of the most beautiful cities in the world. Who would come here at a time like this, she thought. She checked in with Emily. "Are you still okay, financially?" Sue asked. "It's tight, but I'm still paying my rent," Emily said. "I have a few clients who think this is all BS, and they are coming in for treatments in spite of the lockdown. Some of them are paying double. They want me around. They'll get it back in the future." "That's great. How are you doing?" Emily asked. "Okay. I finally got the unemployment started," Sue said, "but even then, I'm not sure I can afford this apartment much longer." "I've heard that a few landlords are lowering the rent," Emily said. "They've had a lot of people stop paying or just leaving. They can deduct that from their taxes, but that only goes so far. From what I can see, the damage is increasing every day," Sue said. "I'm beginning to think the city will never recover. Or at least not anytime soon." "I wonder about that too," Emily said. "I'm a California girl, but I'm not sure I can stay here. A lot of people and companies are moving to Texas. I may have to leave." "Moving to Texas?" Sue asked. "Nothing but hicks and rednecks down there," Not anymore, Emily said. A lot of people are moving there to get away from medical tyranny in other areas. Medical tyranny? That's a new one. What else would you call it? Emily asked. We have all of these unelected health officials micromanaging every part of our life. At the same time, we don't see that a lot of people are actually sick. I'm sure it's in our best interest. Why else would they do it? You seem to be buying the propaganda hook, line, and sinker, Emily said. I don't think it's propaganda. I think it's just the news. Do you remember when they said it would just be for 2 weeks? Emily asked. Yeah. And how long has it been? Year and a half or so, Sue said. And you don't think they lied about how long it would last? I'm sure they had a good reason for extending it, Sue said. Any idea what that is? Not really. Sue sat at her breakfast bar. She opened her laptop and started the spreadsheet program. She laid her bank account and credit card papers in a neat row and studied them. She still had $50,000 in checking, and owed a few hundred on her credit card, with a $20,000 limit. Her unemployment was $4,000 per month. Some people would think that's a lot of money, she thought. But not with my cost of living. At least I have some time to think about it, she thought. Sue looked at each item in her checkbook and credit card statement and asked herself whether the amount was necessary or not. She could see that she was still spending money as if things were normal. But things aren't normal, she thought. She did a search on her computer for ideas on how to control her expenses better. One of the main pieces of advice she found was to keep a list of everything she spent so she knew where it all went. That seems easy enough. A lot less painful than taking a meat axe to my spending, she thought. Later she rummaged through her papers and found a letter telling her about stock she was given by the company. She called the HR department and nervously tapped her fingers as she waited. This is Jeannie, a voice said. How can I help you? This is Sue Taylor. I used to work for the company. Let me pull you up. Okay. How can I help you? I remember getting a letter about a stock award. I'm thinking about selling it. Let me check with someone about that. I'll call you back. Many minutes passed. Finally, a call. What's the verdict? Sue asked. I'm sorry, but that is pre-IPO stock. You can't sell it? Damn. Sorry. I was hoping for better news. We're getting a lot of calls about that. But those are the rules. Thanks for checking. Sue stood up and paced around her living room, stopping to look out at the bridge. I may have to give this up, she thought. Her dad called. How's your situation? It won't last forever. What won't? He asked. The lockdown, she said. When it ends, things will go back to normal. I certainly hope so, he said, but I was asking about your money situation. I can hang on for a while. How long is that? I can keep paying my rent for at least 6 months. Then what? He asked. I'll figure that out when I get there. You can take that approach, but it's risky, he said. If you say so. Well, it is, he said. I think you should be working on some kind of plan B. What's that? That's what I mean about people your age. You've had it so good for so long you think it will never end. But sometimes it does end. This may be one of those times. You still haven't told me what plan B is, she said. What is it? Whatever you think it is, he said, it's what you'll do if things don't get better. But I'm not going to do that thinking for you. You have to do it. Thanks a lot. Sarcasm noted. But seriously, you have to make a plan for yourself. We'll be here to help you financially if you need it, but you have to do the work. Sue checked in with Emily. How's it going? Emily asked. I'm okay. How are doing for money? It's pretty tight, Emily said. My dad says I need a plan B, Sue said. I have no idea about what that should be. Well, "What's your current plan?" Emily asked. "I'm just trying to find another job," Sue said. "Any, how's that going?" "Not well," Sue said. "Everyone says they need help, but none of them have the budget to pay an employee." "Maybe they have money to pay someone on a project basis," Emily said. "I've done temp work in the past and sometimes it paid well." "How do I find work like that?" "I used to go through agencies," Emily said. "I've talked to a lot of agencies," Sue said. "It doesn't go anywhere." "What else can I do?" "Go into business for yourself? Like me?" "I'm not sure I'm cut out for that," Sue said. "I didn't think so, either. It just sort of evolved. I can't imagine working for a corporation." They hung up. "Damn," she thought. "They both say I need to do something, but neither one of them has any realistic idea about what that might be." Sue went to bed early, her mind tired from thinking about a way to move forward. She woke up several times during the night. She went out into the living room and stared at the Bay Bridge. Her head ached from frustration. The next morning, when Sue woke up, she was still groggy. She went into the bathroom, brushed her teeth, and wiped her face with a wet cloth. She patted her face dry with a fluffy hand towel. She felt more awake after that. She studied her face in the mirror. "I'm still young," she thought. "I feel young. Being out of work is a drag, but at least I don't have to put on makeup or a bra to go to the office." She walked back to the kitchen and made a cup of coffee. She looked at her Jura Z6 and thought, $3,000 for a coffee machine? That was then. This is now. While the coffee was brewing, she checked her phone for messages. Nothing. "I feel like I'm disappearing from the world," she thought. Sitting on a high stool at the breakfast bar, she opened her laptop. SF Gate, YouTube, New York Times, Washington Post. All of them were filled with headlines about how many people were sick and dying all over the world. Many countries were increasing restrictions on what people could do, but the disease continued to spread. "I'd give a lot for a ray of hope," she thought. "Should I take Emily's advice about starting my own business? What else can I do if there are no jobs for a long time?" She found a blog post by another tech worker who started putting herself out as a freelance consultant. She reported that finding work was a slow process. It paid less and some of the customers were a pain in the ass. She said she longed for the good old days of corporate serfdom. "I don't think this is me. I want a real job." Sue went to Dice and Monster to see the latest postings. Nothing looked like a good fit. After she got dressed, she went for a walk along the Embarcadero. She stopped near the giant sculptures. Gazing out at the bay, she thought it's still beautiful, in spite of everything going on. A chilly breeze came up, and she went back to her apartment. She went back to her laptop and started to search for ideas on how to start a consulting business. "I may as well try this. Nothing else is happening." After reading a number of blogs and articles, she realized that getting her first paying customer would be the hard part. How do I find people who may become customers? With further research, she came across a website that had a database of almost every business in the US. But it cost about $1 per item. That seemed like a lot of money, so she hesitated. How else can I market myself? She found Craigslist. It charged $5 per ad, good for 30 days. Not too bad, she thought. Would people actually respond to her? It's worth a try. Then she read an article about using LinkedIn to build a business. How could that work? Messages. Who would she message? What do I have to offer? I know technology. I know project management. I know how to manage a group of people. Is that enough? In a job, that had been enough to bring me a good salary for years. Maybe it would be worth something to other companies, even now. If I send messages, what will I say? She started reading articles about writing good online ads. She wrote several, and then picked one to post to Craigslist. Days went by with no responses. Maybe I'm wrong about the market. Maybe my ad sucks. She called her dad. How's it going with the consulting business, he asked. I don't have any business, she said. Are you getting any hits on your ad? Not one. Maybe it sucks, she said. I saw it, he said. It was as good as any and better than some. You obviously did your homework. So why aren't people responding? Did you expect instant results, he asked. I'm not sure what I expected. This is what starting a business really is like, he said. It takes time. Have you considered other ways to find business? I found a place where I can buy information, but it costs about $1 per lead. I'm not sure I want to spend that now. Tell you what, he said, I'll send you a check for $100 so you can try that out. What will I do once I have the names, she asked. Call them up. Ask. Like a salesperson? Ugh. It will be something new for you, he said. You'll learn to appreciate what it's like for people who do that as a job. She went to her laptop and opened Info USA. Who should I look for? Who is responsible for hiring people like me? Who was my ultimate boss? She decided that chief information officers and chief technical officers were her best target. She paid the money and downloaded the file. Now what? She could tell that the file would load in Excel, but she hadn't bought it for her new computer in order to save money. Google Sheets. I know they spy on everything, but in this case I don't care. She opened Chrome and clicked the icon to open Google Drive. She uploaded the file and opened it. An abyss opened. Can I actually just call these people and ask for work? She looked at the clock. 8 a.m. Too early. Reprieve. At 9 o'clock she figured it was safe to call. She tapped the first number. She got a voice system. Please enter the last name of the person you want to reach. She typed the name. There is no person by that name in our directory. Goodbye. She stared at her phone. That didn't go well, she thought. She tried the next number and got a person. How may I help you, they asked. I'd like to speak to Max Schmidt. He's no longer with the company. May I speak to the person who replaced him, Sue asked. She's not in the office today. Can I leave her a message? Sue gave her information and ended the call. That's enough disappointment for one day. She went for a walk. When she returned, Sue checked in with Emily. Was it so hard for you when you started your business, Sue asked. Yes, it was very slow, Emily said. Welcome to the real world, girl. Geez, how did you make it through that? I did odd jobs until the practice got big enough, Emily said. Not too many odd jobs around now. But you have your unemployment, Emily said. That only goes so far. Think of it as a motivator. You're so cold, Sue said. Only because I love you, Emily said. How many people did you call? 2. And you gave up after 2, Emily asked. My dad was in sales. He always said it was a numbers game. What does that mean? It means that the more people you call, the more likely you are to find some business. I guess it's not my thing, Sue said. You do like to eat, don't you, Emily asked. Have a place to live? Yeah. Work your list. Sue went back to her laptop, opened the list, and dialed the next number. Sue checked in with her dad. Hi, Dad. What up, he asked. Normally I have to call you. I think I need to make a decision about this apartment. Probably. Do you want to come home? Not yet, she said. What's your alternative? A cheaper place. Have you found one, he asked. I'm about to start looking. We'll help you move. Thanks. Sue started to read listings on Craigslist. The prices for the places she liked were still high. What can I afford if this continues? Will I have to downgrade my whole life to survive? What about my car? These cheaper places may not have a place to recharge it. Some of the neighborhoods don't look too good. She made a list of a few possibilities and made appointments to see them. As she toured them, her feelings always came down to, I can't see myself living here. She went back to looking at listings further away from the city. Prices were better, and so were the amenities. One day she did another search on Craigslist. She was pleasantly surprised to find that if she went to the East Bay there were a lot of apartments available for a lot less money. She checked in with Emily. I couldn't believe how much cheaper it is over there, she said. That's why I live over here, dummy, Emily said. If I was working in the city the commute would be tough. But you aren't working, so it doesn't matter. What about my car? Some of these places don't have a plug for charging it. You're going to let your car run your life? Emily asked. I need wheels, at least sometimes. Sometimes is the key word. How often do you actually use that thing? A couple of times a week, Sue said. And how much is your payment? Around $1,000 a month. So you're paying more than $100 a ride? Emily asked. I hadn't thought of it that way, Sue said. Why don't we get together and look at some of the places over here? You might find one you like. What's a good day? Sue asked. Thursday or Friday would be good. I have clients coming in over the weekend. Let's do Thursday. We can order some lunch. I'll pay. Around 11, Emily asked. See you then. Sue arrived at Emily's house with boxes of food from the Whole Foods deli. Emily lived in a small house in Oakland. It was an eco-hippie hobbit house. She had herbs, flowers, and food plants growing everywhere inside and out. Her kitchen was alive with the aromas of the tinctures and fermented vegetables she made. I've almost forgotten what it's like to share a meal with someone, Sue said. The world has gotten very small for most of us, Emily said. I'm not the most social person, Sue said, but I miss just being around other people. We need that, Emily said, and I think women need it more than men. Could be, Sue said. Let's go look at apartments. They drove up to the first place Sue had listed. The manager took them in and they walked around. Not too bad, Emily said, but it's like a cave. You'd get depressed, I think. Sue turned to the manager. Thanks for showing it, but I think we'll look at some other options. They got in Sue's Tesla and drove to the next address. The next one had better light, but it looked out at a vacant lot that was filled with trash and weeds. Too bad, Sue said. I liked it except for that. The third one was the best. It had a tiny patio with a glass door that would let in plenty of sunlight. Normally, we require a lease, the manager said, but we'll do month to month now because the market is tough. Can you do a hookup for my car? Sue asked. No, but I've been asked this before. There are Whole Foods and other places where you can charge it. If that's not enough, I hear that getting a connection only costs less than $1,000, the manager said. Can you handle that? I can. Sue wrote a check for the rent and deposit. Over the next few weeks Sue leased some basic furniture for the new apartment: bed, dresser, couch, dinette set. She and her mom brought loads from her old apartment in her Tesla until it was empty. Emily helped her get settled and she spent her first night in the new place. The next morning she checked in with Emily. How was it? Emily asked. Okay, Sue said. I woke up during the night. I stubbed my toe going into the living room. When I looked out the window, I wondered where the bridge was. That's pretty strange, Emily said, but I'm sure you'll get used to it. You can always take a walk someplace where you can see the bridge. The bigger problem is that I feel more isolated than I was in the city. At least over there I knew the guards, and saw the same people where I shopped. I think it's been harder on people who live alone, Emily said. My dentist told me that a lot of his older clients now have a hard time even walking, and their tooth problems have gotten worse. Some of them have even died soon after they got the vaccine. Really, Sue asked. I haven't heard anything about that. One of my clients had a massive heart attack after getting the jab, Emily said. I had tried to talk him out of getting it, but he was so afraid of the bug that he got it anyway. That's terrible, Sue said. My parents got the jab and they seem to be okay. Most people are, but there's no way to know in advance whether or not you'll have a severe reaction. It's a real crapshoot. Months went by with no change in the lockdown. There were more and more homeless people living in the streets. The police would come around now and then and roust them, but they came back. Piles of junk and garbage became common. She checked in with Emily. It's getting really spooky, Sue said. How so? Emily asked. I've been walking around the neighborhood every day and it gets worse all the time. It's like Mad Max. I'm seeing the same thing, Emily said. More empty buildings, more graffiti, more homeless, more junk. Why are they doing this? Sue asked. Nobody is sick. I found a web page where I can monitor intensive care usage and the numbers have gone down a lot. My dad says there is an agenda, Emily said. People like Newsom and Breed are following a playbook written by someone at a higher level. What does he think the agenda is? Wreck the economy so they can rebuild it to suit themselves. He calls it neo-feudalism. And we are the serfs. Copyright 2023, all rights reserved.